Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer. And today I have the pleasure of having my special guest, Kristine from Sites Without Walls. And Kristine, you're an SEO consultant, search engine optimization, digital marketing consultant. And thanks for joining me this afternoon. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business and what you do as an SEO consultant.
Okay, well, I didn't start as an SEO. I started as a web designer and front-end developer, although they didn't call it that back then. I had
Sure.
graduated school with a degree in sociology and art, so I was a barista for a year, and then
Okay.
happenstanced into the web, the internet, and they hired me on my art background, and so I did that for a number of years, and then moved into Vegas, and we were doing 4 million a year in Google clicks. And my boss wanted to know why we weren't ranking well. And I had been looking into it. And she told me I could go ahead and give it a try. So that's how I got into it. And then over the years, I've done all the
Sure.
things, usability and design and front end and SEO accessibility, all those things. And then over the last, 10 years have pretty much narrowed it down to SEO consulting, some web development still and design and some accessibility, but mostly SEO, organic side.
Sure. So I've been, I've been doing kind of the same, SEO consulting. I've been at several different agencies and ran an agency and so forth for a while. And but I'm seeing right now really being extremely busy, and especially given the time that everybody's. I think what's happening now with this, the COVID-19 and everything, and everybody being home, people are relying on the internet a lot more, and they're realizing that now they can, or people, well, they can do online shopping, they can order things online, and they're they're pulling out their mobile phones a lot more. And I'm seeing either complaints or that internet usage is up. People talking about everybody in their household using multiple devices and so forth on the internet. And so I think it's a great time actually to be in digital marketing, because we're able to help so many different businesses online. And I was able to actually help a local food pantry in our area in the past week that never had a website, never had anything online. They did have a Google My Business listing, but it was the incorrect spelling of their name, and so was able to reach out to them and get a website up. And now today we just got the online donation links all working,
Oh, nice.
so people can donate online. So so many things happening, and from at least from my perspective here, in Texas, a lot of people are, you know, getting online for the first time. What are you seeing as far as in your area?
First, I just want to say that's really great what you did. I'm a big supporter of our food pantry here in Vegas, and it's much
Sure.
more funded than apparently the one
Yep.
locally for you, but they're so important right now. So that's really great. For someone getting, you're saying for someone getting online the first time, correct? That's what you asked me?
Yes, I mean, actually, there's a lot of, I'm finding a lot of businesses are realizing that, sure, they've had the phone and they've had the access and so forth, but what my suspicion is that we're going to see more and more just people now, they were kind of forced to get online. They were forced to, kind of use their phone a lot more to order and so forth. Now they realize, okay, well, they have now they realize actually that they can do it. It's not very difficult to order something online. So I feel like going forward we're going to have a lot more people using the internet and ordering online, which actually it essentially increases the demand for our services as digital marketers.
True. Yeah, it does. And for anybody getting online, it's really important they understand that when you start building your website, you want to consult with somebody like us first to make sure that
Yep,
you don't
definitely.
make errors that you have to go back and fix, because fixing is always way more expensive, and you'll spend a lot of money in paid search or paid ads trying to make up the difference if you're not doing well organically. So yeah, definitely. And definitely during the recession, we saw a big turn of monies over to organic, because organic is more of an investment, as you know. Paid
Sure.
search, once you turn it off, it's off. When you do good organic search, you could get rid of me and you, after we've done our gig, and it would still hold for quite a while after we were gone. So as long as they continued with the basic principles of link building and content creation. So yeah, it's really important, anyone who's new to this, to get a proper even if you just talk to someone on a consulting level, to know what you need for your site before you start paying money to people to build a site.
Sure. So, say we're either a small, medium-sized business, we've maybe had a website, or we're kind of just starting. We've heard about, what I'd like to call, or what a lot of people call, EAT, which is expertise, authority, and trust. And so, especially for new websites or websites that are, I guess, not very trusted, or not, not really well known yet, and don't have a lot of organic traffic. What really does this concept of EAT, expertise, authority, and trust, what does all that mean?
It's a big topic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so let's back up to what EAT came from. So EAT came from, and Bill, you know all this, I'm just talking to the audience, but
Sure.
Came from the Quality Raters Guide, which is what Google uses to help assess how well its algorithms are doing. And in the Quality Raters Guide is basically a dumbing down of all the algorithms that Google has, which is many, into easy to follow concepts for the quality raters to be able to rate the algorithms properly. So EAT, expertise, authority, and trust is written in the Quality Raters Guide. And when I do it, anytime I present, I'll ask SEOs to make sure that they download it, but make sure that they remember it's not an SEO guide. It is a guide to what Google thinks is a quality site. So some of the things in there are in rankings and ranking factors, and some of the things in there are just good for users. So there's some things that EAT is not. So that's probably really important for people to understand before they pump their money into it. It's not things like accuracy and content. Google doesn't look at that. It's not things like authorship. Google doesn't know who authors are unless you're really, really well known. So don't spend, tens of thousands of dollars on writing content with a, certain type of well-known author, and making sure that the content is, accurate's not the right word. You do want to make sure it's accurate, but you don't need to rewrite it all with a doctor if you're doing like a medical site. Sure. That being said, so what EAT is, expertise, authority, and trust, is that people will trust that your website is good, that it's, the original reason for these algorithms was spam, to make sure you were not spam. So things like having good content, well-written content, but that doesn't mean you have to pay some well-known writer to write it. Make sure that you know what you're talking about, that you have a good site architecture, that you have a good link building plan. And link building plans mean acquiring links naturally from outside sources. If you're new to this industry, you definitely don't want to be buying links. That would be a really big recipe for disaster, because you can get bad links really easily and get your site taken out of the index. So the main things that Google always says: good content, good site architecture, make sure Google can crawl your site, and make sure that you have good people noticing you and linking to you. And then also making sure you have things like a privacy policy, that you have a contact page, that you have an about section. If you have authors, that you've written bios about the authors so they know who they are, and that you link to those bios. So anything that to a user would make your site appear trustworthy. If you have trust signals, like you have good, if you've in an organization or association like your Chamber of Commerce or the BBB, put those on your site so people are aware that you're a trusted source. And then your online reputation, and making sure that you have a good reputation online. Those would be the biggest things that someone just starting out could attack.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, certainly, and depending on the, it's all going to kind of depend on the industry. Obviously, one thing I do like to do is do search query, do a search for a keyword and actually see who is showing up, and start to look at, see if there are any, there's a couple different things. I mean, that, there's number one is if that particular search, that particular keyword, we want to kind of understand the intent of it. When you do a search for that one particular keyword, what type of search results? Are you seeing more just informational, just information about that particular topic, or is it a keyword where a lot of companies who offer services where where their pages are showing up. So there's we want to actually look and see what's showing up in the search results now, because
Sure.
there's certain search queries that where you will find that, sure, you'd like to rank maybe for those general keywords that describe your industry or what you do, but you'll see that pages like Wikipedia and more informational pages are showing up, in the results, and that actually may not even lead specifically to what we call a conversion, which is somebody doing a search, clicking on it, and then contacting you to provide that provide that service for you. And so there's different types of search queries, and certainly those general ones, like ones from Wikipedia, ones from that are informational. Those are the type of sites that you could potentially try and get a link from, or create enough content where you would be referenced by Wikipedia, for example. Or there's a search query that that shows a list of companies that are your competitors. One option would be to start looking at the links that they have. You look at Majestic and Ahrefs and some of these link tools that say, okay, well, where are your competitors listed? Do they all have BBB listings, and they have other industry sites linking to them, which shows trust, right?
Sure. No, of course. Yeah. And just to back up a little, by the way, I talked over myself. If you have a medical site and you're writing about a medical topic, you definitely want to have a doctor at least check the content, make sure it's good content, or a doctor to write it. But generally speaking, they're not looking at accuracy of content. So you don't need to. I've had people come to me and say they spent $20,000 rewriting all their content with a certain author. And it's like, well, Google doesn't really care about who the author is, and you didn't need to spend that money. It would have been better spending it on something like you're talking about, like natural link building and keyword research, which if you are already online, hopefully you've done your keyword research. But if you haven't, that's a really good thing to get for a new business online to get done, or even an existing business. With the way Google has been rolling out algorithms that address language, I often will suggest to a company, after I've done a review of their keywords, to make sure that they haven't query shifted, to make sure that the queries that were bringing them traffic haven't shifted into different queries, or to make sure that they are not missing competitor queries. So I had, like you were talking, one company who we researched their competitor. They didn't share one keyword with the competitor, but the competitor was the biggest guy in the room. They were big too, but they were like second or third largest in their industry, but they weren't in any of the same spaces. So why invent new keywords? Why not skate to the puck? If the person is already there, the biggest in the industry, then you want to be in the top 10 with that company, because if someone's doing research on companies, then you might be the one that they choose over the bigger one. So it's really important, if you have a large competitor, that you're in the same space as they are, if you're offering the same type of product, and then products, and also if those queries bring in large numbers of traffic. So totally agree.
So definitely, and you mentioned something about content, and having obviously having a doctor or write the content. That I don't think, as I understand, Google doesn't, or the search engines actually don't have any way of verifying whether or not certain facts
Yes,
that you
100%.
state in your article is true or not.
100%.
I mean, I think there's and so hopefully maybe 5-10 years down the road we may be talking differently. I mean, they might have the AI might be smart enough to figure a lot of that out. We might have more information out there, but at this point, we don't, whether, even if it's some cure for something, and we say it's a drink this and you'll get cured, this'll help you. There's no way, search engines are not going to verify those facts. They
No.
do have other ways of, of, there may be other ways through seeing who's linking to you and referencing your particular content and linking to your content. There may be other kind of indirect ways, but they're not actually looking at your content and verifying that your content is correct.
Right.
Or,
The only time they use anything similar to that is in featured snippets. And if you look at the featured snippets documentation from Google, it does say it looks for common agreement among content to pull a snippet, which makes sense because you're featuring something. But you're exactly right, because if you really think about it, when people say they're looking at accuracy of content, they would have to be able to look at every country's language, dialect, dialect of dialect. And then on top of that, what would be a fact? So I love to use the example of omega vitamins, fish oil. So
Sure.
like
Yep.
the American Heart Association says take omegas. That's 3 and 6. But 6 is actually very bad for the body. It's very inflammatory. So if you look at the British I can't speak today, the British Journal of Medicine, which has been around since the 1800s, they will tell you do not take omega-6s. They're very inflammatory. Take omega-3s because you should have a certain ratio of 1-to-1. But which would be right? Because the American Heart Association is sorely trusted and it's an authority. And
Sure.
the British Journal of Medicine is actually the one more accurate, but that's because it's more recent information. They've just started doing studies on that in the last couple of years. So with as fast as medicine changes, like say COVID, how would they even know what a fact was? Let's say they could somehow AI it, all that information, and then do it for every single piece of information on the internet in every language, in every country, in every history, and historically reference it, and pull it back in a matter of 5 or 10 seconds. It's just not something that would just be even feasible for them to do. The resources for that would have to be massive, and they could.
Exactly. So it's not scalable. I mean,
No.
it's just not. Certainly if there's, I guess it's possible if there's information out there on a page, and there's enough spam reports or enough reports that, that there's one particular web page that has a problem. Certainly they may be able to look at that, but no, it's certainly not scalable at all. So they kind of have to, use other signals such as trust and expertise
Right.
and so forth.
And there was even a paper that some people like to reference in the industry about them trying to pull facts. And that researcher actually says at the end, it's not scalable, that there's just no way they could do it. And on the Google looking at signals, that's what the core updates have been really about. They've been about tweaking the signals to try to get more authoritative results, but they're just tweaking core signals. And according to John Mueller, they're looking at content quality and site quality and content relevance are the two main things that they look at as updates. So queries, like we were talking about, and then how your site's doing. Technically, can they crawl it, index it? How fast does it work? Does it have links to it? All the normal ranking factors.
So one thing I've been kind of focusing on is I do some link building and do do linking, but I've been looking more into more paying attention to entities and building up either a personal brand or a company brand that and so that they are get to them to a point where they are considered an entity, and that gets into the knowledge graph. And certainly there and both Bing and Google use the knowledge graph.
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit about what the knowledge graph is and why we should even pay attention to it?
Okay, well, so another big topic, but I've given a couple talks on it. So entities, for anybody who's not aware what an entity is, because it sounds like a big fancy word, just means nouns. And it's nouns that Google puts a mathematical number on, puts them in a vector graph, and the vector graph with nodes decides what's related to each other. So if I wrote a page about Marvel comic characters, but I never mentioned Marvel, Google would know that those characters are related to Marvel, and the distance of the node in the vector relationship tells them the strength of that relationship. So if I say apples and oranges, that's used quite commonly. If I said apple and kiwi, well, that might be used less commonly. So, and more
Sure.
specifically to recipes versus just a colloquialism. So basically, Google uses those vector relationships and nodes to create the knowledge graph. And the knowledge graph is where it's pulling the entities, the nouns that it knows, the relationships to that noun, up in sort of easy to refer to information inside the search results, like a knowledge graph panel. Hopefully, I think that covers it as quick, as laymanly as I can.
Sure. So what, I guess my goal is my thinking is that, okay, if there's a company or an organization that has, if you get them to a point where there are enough mentions on the web, that there are, and those mentions or links and so forth are in places that are from trusted sites, there is a point in time where, okay, when you do a search for that particular brand, that on the right side of Google search results, they will have a special knowledge panel for that particular, that entity or that company or brand. And so my thinking is that, okay, well, sure, we can go out and get or create links or get links to our content, but if we focus a little bit more on the knowledge and on getting a knowledge panel entry or knowledge graph entry, then that leads us into a direction that we're focusing a little bit more on trusted signals and getting mentions on more authoritative websites rather than just getting some random blog post to link to us.
Sure, yeah, that'd definitely be very powerful. And in addition, that would mean that Google knows who you are as an entity and then what's
Yeah.
related to you as an entity. So you can see that if we want to see it in the simplest forms, if you go into images and you search for someone and the little bubbles come up on top, and it's like, is this a meme? Is this political? Is this cartoon?
Sure.
It's because it knows it's related to those things. So for what you're saying, building an entity relationship in Google in the knowledge graph would be very good for an organization, because an organization would be known for that. And when they're pulling back items on queries, the query intent would be much more apparent to Google and much more easily discovered, I think.
Yes, definitely. So then, we can get into, there are, I know Inlinks, for example, Inlinks.net just launched a market trends tool. And so what we can see is we can do search queries there. And we can find out, okay, well, we can search for keywords and we can find related topics and we can find, content ideas. And we can see what type of related topics to that subject or that entity, whatever industry we're in. We can see related topics that are trending and so forth, and get content ideas. And certainly that's one way. And certainly other keyword related, research we can do, like Google Trends and so forth, and to get content ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I love the Inlinks tool because it's such an interesting and unique tool that nobody else really offers. And I haven't had a chance to look at the marketing trends yet, but I'm really excited to start playing around with that because I think it's going to be really helpful in finding items that are starting to do straight up keyword research, which is a little more, what am I trying to say? Inlinks is going to give you direction, where when you're doing keyword research, you're trying to find that direction, where Inlinks is going to be able to tell you where to look immediately.
Sure.
Yeah, I think anyway.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. So I know you focus on SEO consulting and people who have problems or issues or ranking issues with websites and so forth. And we didn't even get into talking about ADA compliance or any kind of type of usability and so forth. And probably we'll have to schedule another time to talk about that. But how do we get in touch with you? And I guess what's the best way?
Best way is probably just LinkedIn. I'm the only Kristine
Sure.
Schachinger on the internet. So Kristine with a K, Schachinger. Start to type in the last name, it'll come up anyway. But that's usually the best place. The cobbler has no shoes, so I don't currently have a website. So that's the best place to go to find me.
Okay, sounds great. Kristine, thanks again for spending some time with me this afternoon talking about everything from eat to links and building authority and so forth. This has been the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast for Thursday, April 30th, 2020. Thanks again, Kristine.
Thanks, Bill, for having me. I
Keep in
really
touch. We'll see
appreciate
you
it.
online.
Thanks.
Thanks.